so much in March, where we are sewing a knit t-shirt. This is the Tonic Tee by SBCC Patterns, and it's specifically made for petites. But I'll tell you what, it's a great top, and even if you're not petite, they have an option to sew the pattern for average height as well. Here's how far we've gotten. If you tuned in for the last episode, you'll remember I had a little bit of a kerfluffle in dealing with the neckline. Oopsie, but look, I fixed it. All I did was I added a second stitch to help it lie flat, and I think it's gonna work. So now what we're gonna do, I've got one sleeve attached to this side, but we need to attach the other sleeve, and then we need to hem the sleeve, and then we need to sew the side seams, and then we need to hem the bottom, and then we're done. So let me flip you around and let's do some pinning. Welcome everybody, so glad you're here. Happy Tuesday, and happy, oh my gosh, is it spring yet? I feel like so much in March is a really great way to usher in the next chapter of the year. Spring is a glorious time of year, and I used to be strictly a summer girl, but guess what? I like all seasons now, including winter, but spring is probably one of my tops. Okay, so this sleeve has some notches in it to help you orient. The first center notch is going to go right here on the shoulder seam, and we are going to be attaching the sleeve right sides together. So here's the weird thing. If you can't quite picture this in your mind, it's getting flipped around like this. And you might be thinking, how the heck are we going to attach this and this when they're curving in opposite directions? Well, we're just going to pin it, and it's going to line up. It's going to be the right length, and it's going to have the right curve to be a proper shoulder seam. So we got the first pin in. Now, what I like to do typically is find my way to the ends, line those guys up, and then pop another pin in. That looks pretty good to me. Sometimes you'll find with knit fabrics that the edges kind of curl under, but I'm not having too much of a problem with this particular fabric. And isn't it beautiful? I love this floral so much. All right, so now the two notches here indicate that this is the back side of the shoulder. And again, we're just gonna pop a pin right in there. Nice and aligned. And you'll see when I get over to my sewing machine, I'm using a walking foot for this project, and that really helps to avoid the material, what's the word I'm looking for? Scrunching up, or getting stretched out, or just kind of being wavy and nonsense. So we're going to avoid that. All right, so now what we can do, just kind of in between the notches here and the shoulder seam, I'm going to find the middle and just pull the fabric there, and it's going to just basically go a little bit easier for the pinning when you're doing halves that way, because you don't want to find that you're maybe accidentally, unintentionally stretching your fabric a little bit, and then you're going to end up with some gaping and some crinkling. So this is going really well. And sometimes the knit can be a little bit tricky with my fingers to try to get it to do what I want. All right, so now we're at the front of the shoulder, and we've got another notch here. If you can see that, we are lining that up with this right here. And we can also line up the end there. It's getting a little bit fiddly here, but that's not so bad. When we sew this, we're going to be putting the sleeve so that it's facing up, and the bodice is going to be facing the bottom, the feed dogs on the sewing machine. And that's just my personal preference. I know some people do it the opposite way. I like doing it that way because I'm going to show you in a little bit. I'm using a twin needle to sew this material together. And what that ends up doing is when you sew the twin seams on the front, and then there's like a zigzag seam in between them on the back, it always tends to, your seam allowance is always going to go in the same direction. And I'm going to show you an example of that. So for your sleeves on a t-shirt, it's preferred that your seam allowance is going to be folding back towards your body, not towards your hand. So that's our last pin. I'm going to pop over to the machine and show you exactly what I mean with that. Close your eyes if you get dizzy. All right, welcome. We're sewing on Dirty Gertie, my Singer Stylist 457 today. She is a lovely old girl and she is super strong. This is the twin needle that I've got in here. This is a ballpoint needle. You can see that there's two and they're threaded up here. Two different threads. One's just in a bobbin because I didn't have a second spool of white thread. Alright, so let me show you what I mean about these seam allowances. So here's our twin needle. You can see the 2 rows of stitching. It's preferable to avoid this tunneling effect, but I haven't found a way to get around it without using a stabilizer. So here's what happens when you fold it open. Seam allowance is always going to go towards that direction. So when we're looking at the fabric like this, if we want it to go that way, that means we want this fabric on top to be the sleeve that we're attaching, and we want the bottom fabric to be the body of the shirt, which is the shoulder. All right, so let's get that set up like that, which means we're going to be starting here. And I think I might need to move you to a little bit of a different angle, but let me get situated here with everything. And with sleeves, it's often a good idea to double check that you did everything right. It's very easy, I've found, to attach the wrong sleeve to the wrong armhole. It's also easy to attach a sleeve backwards. There's a lot of things that can go wrong, a lot of moving parts. So I feel confident that everything is set up correctly. Now I kind of feel like I want to second guess myself. But I'm going to pretend that I do feel confident. Now, how are we for getting you focused here? Because sometimes this is a little tricky with... Okay, I think that looks pretty good. So for this knit top, we are doing a little seam allowance. We're just doing 3/8 inch. And again, I have a walking foot on here, so I'm just aligning the edge of my fabric with the edge of the walking foot right there. My presser foot is down. I'm doing a straight stitch for this, and I am sewing at 8 stitches per inch. I'm gonna do a few back stitches here to just lock this in. And then we're going to start sewing. Get this pin out of here so we don't get caught on it. And let's go! So much March. Here we come, sewing on a sleeve. Now, my fabric got sucked under there a little bit, which isn't great. And in order to kind of get it back where I want it, it's not really a great idea to stretch your fabric out either. But, gosh, was I even wrinkled under there? I almost feel like I want to take this out and start over. No, I think I'm okay. I think I'm okay, but that was kind of a close call. I have to really pay attention here. Ready? Let's go. No wrinkles on the bottom layer. Okay. Sewing around curves is often a little bit tricky, but the slower you go, usually the easier it is. And when you're using a lot of pins, there's often a little bit of stop and go traffic because you're busy taking out a lot of pins. But pinning is important. It's not a step that you really ought to skip. So I'm getting a little bit of curling under for the sleeve at the bottom, and I'm just really checking that that is not happening because we don't want it to cause any spots to not be connected. Come on. Okay, now here we are coming up to this seam. I often call that a speed bump, but we're going over a number of, let me see here. So for the whole sleeve, we're sewing 2 layers of fabric, but here where we're going over, we're sewing over, looks like 3 layers, maybe 4 actually. So it's a little bit tricky when you're having a difference in your width of your fabric like that. Oh, this is tricky as heck. I think we got it. Whoops. I'm really wanting to curl under and it's kind of annoying me. Let's get this like that. All right, good. Let's keep sewing. Did you hear that go over the bump? I've found that it really doesn't like going over it with the knit fabric. It really, really doesn't like it. I've had some skip stitches and stuff happening. All right, I think we are good. Oh, I'm being careful to try not to stretch the fabric, but I'm also finding that sometimes a little bit of stretching is necessary because look at what's happening here. This is super challenging. Get you over there. Hope you're still focused. It likes to focus on the tension dial, not on the needles. Okay, I think that is all right. Let's get this. There we go. So knits, as you can probably tell, it requires a little more attention than sewing something like cotton or I'm trying to think if I sewed like a satin gown recently. And I think, I mean, it's just different than sewing a knit. I don't know if it's harder or easier. I kind of want to say it's just different. Oh, this is tough. Okay, let's get these rolls out of here. Quit rolling on me. There's a few little tricks. There's stuff that you can buy that's like a fabric stiffener, and you could spray that here, and it might help your knit prevent it from rolling over. Another thing is you could add a stabilizer. Maybe even a wash away stabilizer would be a good choice. Uh-oh, I hope I wasn't rolled under. Am I okay? And that might make this a little bit less intense. You know, any tricks that you can use to help the process go along a little easier is often a win, especially if it's not too expensive. Although, have any of you gotten some good finds at Joann's for their bankruptcy sale? I'm very sad about Joann's not being here anymore, but might be some good stuff to stock up on. Doesn't get out of stock before it gets marked down. Oh my goodness, this is something. Wow. All right. I'm just trying to unroll this and it's really not cooperating so easily. I think that's gonna do it. Let's just sew before it twists under on me again. Okay. And now we're not really on a curve so much, so this part ought to be fairly easy. Last little bit of the sleeve. I didn't love the sound of that. I hope we're okay. All right, and let's finish it up. We'll do a back stitch at the end. It's a little bit off there, and I'm okay with it. All right, back stitch, just a few. There we go. We got our sleeve attached. Now, I am a little bit concerned about the beginning. It's kind of going a little wonky there, but we'll take a look and see how it went. I've been cutting these threads a little bit long, and I'll show you why in a moment. Let's see how that came out. Da, 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 da. So here's the back part. Looks lovely. And the whole thing, I'd say, was great. Sometimes for sleeves you can get puckering, you can get some pinching of your fabric, and that is all, you want to avoid that. And it looks like I have, which is great. So now here's a little trick that I've been doing. I really don't ever want these seams to come undone on this t-shirt. And also bear in mind, the reason I'm using twin needles is because this fabric stretches. And so the twin needles, the way that they work is they put in a stitch that has quite a bit of give to it. So the stitches can actually stretch with the material. However, there's always the possibility that your sleeve is going to get stretched further than your stitches can, and your thread is going to rip. And then you're going to have either a sleeve that comes unattached, or a neckline, or a hem that's coming undone. And I don't want any of those things to happen. So here, I think this might help in that. Anytime I have the end of a stitch where we've got 3 threads, I've been tying, but what I did was I took a needle, I popped the bobbin thread over to where the top threads were, the same side of the material, and then I tie a knot. So whether or not that's going to help long term, I'm not sure, but I feel like it will. It certainly is not going to hurt anything, although it does add a little bit of time to the process. Okay, let's flip this guy over, and then the next step is we're going to sew the side seam, which is going to be a little bit easier than sewing on the sleeve because we've got way less curves. Hopefully we'll have less curling under too. The sleeve was basically cut on the bias because it has that like kind of like a C shape to it, I guess. So anytime you're cutting fabric on the bias, it's less stable than if you're cutting on the grain line or on the cross grain, especially with knits. Okay, so here we are. We've got our sleeve, and now let's start working on the side seam. So I think what I'm going to do here, I'm going to back you all up a little bit, and we're going to get these aligned. So here's the bottom of our sleeve, and you'll remember that I was telling you that we want the seam allowance to go towards the body of the shirt, which is exactly what it's doing here. It's important, what you want to do is you want to line up these two right here with each other. Okay? So that's the most important part. We're going to put a pin in there and try to keep them aligned. This is right where the underarm is going to be for your sleeve. Then we can put a pin in up here. For this, I like to put my pins in this way, and then I actually don't have to take them out as I'm sewing along. I can just have the pins go to the left side of the foot, and I can just keep bringing my material through. All right, so next I'm going to pin at the bottom hem, and then we're going to kind of work our way up from there. Oh, this is so exciting. This top is going to be great for spring. It's going to be great for summer. The pattern comes in sizes, I believe the smallest is extra, extra small. And the largest size is, let me check here. It goes up to a 4X. 4X. So there's a great range in sizes. And as you know, bodies come in all shapes, all sizes, and all heights. So if you fit in that size range and you want to sew yourself a really nice fitting t-shirt, again, whether you are a petite size or not, I really recommend this Tonic tee by SBCC Patterns. It's fabulous, fabulous. And I'll show you in a little bit. I'm wearing one that I sewed up a couple days ago, and I love it so much. I might sew one in every single knit fabric that I own, because now I can sew knits. This is a totally new experience for me. I had never sewn knits before this. It's the first time I'm trying a twin needle, and I'm excited too because I've picked up over the past year and a half or so some new to me sewing machines. All my machines are vintage. The Singers are all from the 50s, 60s, and the newest one I got is from the 70s. She's from Brazil. But that machine, the 70s girl, she is really, she's pretty fancy. She's got some really fancy stitches that I really want to try out, and some of them are like stretch stitches. So rather than using the twin needle, I might be able to, try to use some fancy stretch stitches and see what that is like. Because it's always fun to learn new techniques. All right, I feel like I might be a little bit twisted around this needle, and I definitely do not want that to be the case. All right, that can just get pulled back behind, and we're okay, we're okay. All right, let's sew up the side seam. Oh my gosh, this is exciting. All right, so obviously you don't want to accidentally sew close your armhole. We're just starting down right here where your underarm would be in the shirt. And how does this look? I can get you a little bit better lighting, I think. We got some kind of overcast skies here today, but it has been a little warmer, which is great, because it's so much in March and it's almost spring. And we need some weather where we can wear these t-shirts that we're sewing. Okay, let's go. I started a little bit far from, I actually started quite far from the edge of the fabric there. So I did a lot of back stitching. And now when I come forward, it's like stitching over a ridge now. So this might be a little tricky. We'll see. Not bad, but now we have to go over a speed bump. So let me get my little fiddly stick, and we're a little bit further over than I'd like, but that is okay. Get this fabric under here without bunching. Hand crank when you need to. There is no shame in that. And we are good to just sew a nice long straight stitch. Oh, did my thread break? It sure did. Oh goodness, what is going on here? Where did it break? Pretty far back. All right, that's a little bit frustrating. So we're gonna have to take this out. If for some reason there's been more tension on the right thread than on the left one, and I'm wondering if it's because the right one goes through this keeper and the left one doesn't. It might be that, or it might just be something with the tension discs, whatever the case is. It's the right thread that snapped on me. So let me pull this out of here. I'm going to cut off the damaged area of the thread. We're going to have to rethread this. Here I am saying, oh, this seam's going to go so quick and easy. I'm just going to go straight down. Nope, not quite. Got a little bit of a hiccup, which is often the case with sewing. I wonder if it happens more with vintage machines than with newer ones. But whether that's true or not, I love sewing on a vintage Singer. There's not much that beats it. This particular machine, I picked her up at a thrift store. I really was not thinking I would ever sew on this machine because she was a dirty mess. Oh my gosh, was she dirty. That's why her name is Dirty Gertie. But I had picked her up because I really wanted a sewing cabinet. I really love how with a cabinet, this is flush. You know, you don't have a sewing machine that's on top of your tabletop. It's just flush, and it makes it easier for me to sew a lot of things. So, picked her up. I'm like, well, who knows? Maybe I'll try to get the machine working. I did, and oh my goodness, she is just so glamorous. I have to go all the way back to like here. None of this was going okay. She is lovely. She's so strong, and I'm really, really glad I picked her up. So that's the story of Dirty Gertie. We've also got in the sewing stable Dirty Diana. She is also a vintage Singer. She's born in, I want to say 1962, so she's a little bit younger than this girl. I think I have my dates right. This machine was built in England, and my other machine that I'm talking about, Dirty Diana, she was built in the UK. I'm sorry, she was not built in the UK. She was built in Italy. She's Italian. And we're going to start right here. Okay. Let's get some stitches and back stitches to stabilize this, or to anchor it in the stitches, basically. Ugh, I don't love any of this. We're flipping under. All right, we're okay. We're just going to have to redo some of this, and that is okay. Can't really rip these stitches out. It's like one needle was sewing and the other one wasn't, but it's not really locked in because it doesn't have the second thread to get locked into. And I'm not even gonna bother trying to rip those out. It's very difficult, I found, to try to rip out twin needle stitches. It's just been a lost cause for me. I think stitches in general, ripping them out of knits is tricky, but yeah, that's beyond my pay scale. All right, here we go. Back stitch. And let's get uncurled underneath. That should be good. And let's sew. I feel like I'm really manhandling the fabric right now because we really just need to make sure that it stays underneath. If it doesn't, we're not even going to have a seam that works. Okay, how are we doing now? I think we're back on track. All right, excellent, excellent. Still good? Yep. Oh, I feel like I got a little bit stuck here, and I don't like that. I'm not sure what's going on. Let me pull up the presser foot. I wonder if we can remedy this. I don't know, folks. What do you think? Are we going to get caught? Let's hand crank and see. It's kind of like the fabric is puckered underneath here, which is really weird. All right, let's go. I think we came out okay. Let's do a couple of back stitches, and then we're gonna be able to do our little hem in our sleeve. Oh, something weird's happening, I think. Feels like my thread isn't... Oh. Did it break again? Ugh. Getting a little bit irritated by whatever's happening. I might rethread it. Okay. Cross your fingers that this seam looks all right. I'm not sure what we're gonna find. Okay, this isn't perfect. This is looking okay. This is the weird spot where we kind of got underneath, a little bit jammed. I think it's okay. Let's take a look from the other side, which is the side that matters. That looks fine. Fantastic. We've got our side seam. All right. I'm going to do my little trick and flip this over and tie a knot. And you will know that there is, so I think I mentioned that the seam allowance on this garment is 3/8 inch, but for hemming the sleeves and the bottom hem, it's going to be 3/4 inch seam allowance. And so I just have to remember that. Sometimes I forget stuff. You're just kind of on autopilot too. It's like, oh, well, I just sewed this entire garment with using the right edge of my walking foot as the guide, you know, in my mind, looking over there. And it's like, oh, wait a sec. Now I have to go to this line that says 4 on it. 4 out of... Oh, no. I have to go to... 4 would be 1/2. Huh. I feel like I may have sewed my hem smaller than I was supposed to. Maybe. Maybe it's okay though. I don't know if I could go much shorter, because look it, this isn't that long. You'll see when I fold it down what a 3/4 inch seam allowance looks like. Oh, I know why. It's because, all right, so I'm going to use a little seam gauge to measure 3/4 inch and then tuck it under. But the reason why I think it's not quite looking like 3/4 inch on the sewing machine is because when you fold over the fabric, you kind of lose a little bit of width in the fold. So that might be part of what's going on. And I could also just be misremembering too. Maybe I did align it at the... I can show you what I'm talking about if anybody's not clear. All right, got our knots. We're locked and loaded. Oops, I got this one at the end. Did I already flip it? No, but this is at the end, so I'm actually just gonna tie a knot right here without flipping it over to the other side. Oh, so many knots. My fingers get very tired doing this. Does anyone have any questions about sewing knit garments? You could pop it into the chat. Welcome, I'm so glad you're here. We're sewing our fingers off in so much March. All right, let's spin around. Close your eyes if you get dizzy. And let's take a look at our shirt so far. So, this is the sleeve that I had already sewn, and I've already done the hem on this. So, what we're doing at this point is we are, don't mind the threads that I haven't tied yet, we're top stitching. So we want the twin needle to be here because this is the part we're going to be looking at. This part looks a little bit wonky and ugly, so that's going to be the underside. So this means that when we pin our fabric, we're gonna do it like this. And this is gonna give us that little turned under. Like if you were sewing in a woven fabric, you would do like a little fold like that and then another fold, but because it's knits, it doesn't fray. So we don't need to worry about that part, but what we do need to worry about is pinning still. You're always going to be doing your pinning. So let me grab my seam gauge, where did it go? I have a ruler, but that's not really helpful. I need something flat for this. Oh boy, did it fall. I guess I could grab another alternative. All right, well, we can use this little ruler, why not? All right, so we are measuring 3/4 inch, and then I'm gonna put some pins in. And here's how I'm gonna pin this, because we're gonna be sewing it from, that's a little tricky. We're gonna be sewing it from, like it's gonna be feeding through the machine like this. So I'm putting my pins in the top. If they were in the bottom, they'd be getting all caught and it would be a disaster. And that's what we're doing for this. And you just kind of have to pin. If you don't like pinning, you're probably not gonna like sewing very much. Well, let's rephrase that. If you can tolerate pinning, you're well on your way to becoming a good sewist, I think. Sometimes life is just about tolerating things, right? I'm gonna call that 3/4 inch. It's a little weird because it's got all that bunching under there from the seams, and that's okay. But look at, we're really off over here. So let's get back to 3/4 inch. That looks about right. Let's check it. Yep. And we're gonna throw another pin in. What's really nice for some machines, not the one I'm working on, but for example, this one here, when you're sewing sleeves and cuffs and little things, it's nice if you have a free arm. Close that up. So like if I was sewing on this, I would be able to just loop my sleeve around here, and I wouldn't have to worry about fiddling around trying to get fabric to fit underneath and stay out of the way when I'm sewing. But it's not essential. We'll do just fine without it on Dirty Gertie. Oh, do you know I was looking into possibly bringing a sewing machine on an airline with me? And it turns out you can bring a sewing machine, your choice, either as a carry-on or as checked luggage. So that was interesting. What was also interesting and also disheartening was the fact that the airline I'm flying, which is like a budget airline, they were going to charge an outrageous price to either bring a carry-on bag or a checked bag. I was like, nope, we are not. We are not spending. I think it was like I think it was $75 for a bag fee. I'm like, that is ridiculous. Presumably it would have been less if I had paid for it when I bought the ticket. I'm just like, no, we're not doing it. So I may look into shipping costs to just like either UPS, you know what? I said I was going to rethread, and I'm going to rethread because I don't want to get annoyed with this stuff tangling up. You guys can watch me do it. So yeah, it turns out, I'll go through the options here for sewing machines that might get a one-way ticket to Florida. We have the really, really handsome and talented Richard Gere, Gear. He is a Ricard 1800, And I'm not entirely sure of his age, but I'm guessing, I mean, Richard Gere was very, very popular in the 90s, and I'm thinking that that's around the time that he was manufactured. I'm just cleaning out these tension discs, if maybe there's anything stuck in there that's causing some problems. So that's one option. Do you know how much Richard Gere weighs? 18.5 pounds. The other option to bring down to Florida would be, and I was thinking she would be good as a carry-on or a check bag because she's got her own little suitcase. That would be Dirty Diana. The first machine I got, she's a vintage Singer from, what did I say, 1958 or 1960? I'm so bad. I get their birthdays confused. Dirty Gertie and Dirty Diana. They're sisters, if you didn't know. All right. So I'm threading the left thread first. And we're not going through that last keeper, but we are going to go through here. Let me get this all the way up. Going through the left needle. I have been on point with threading needles recently. It's usually something I struggled with quite a bit. So yeah, shipping costs. That's going to be my next thing, is how much would it cost to ship a, I don't know, when you add the box and the packing materials, let's call him a 21-pound sewing machine from Pennsylvania to Florida? I don't know. What do you think that's going to run me? I'll have to look it up. And you know what? Sewing machines, all my machines I've found at thrift stores. And then I have a serger that I got for free off of Facebook Marketplace. So it's always possible that, you know, I'll be down there and be like, oh, let's stop at this thrift store and find a great machine down there. But I'm also kind of like, you know, I have 4 sewing machines, and I definitely see the benefit. You know, there's great benefit to having a main machine and a backup machine for so many reasons. First of all, you can like have one always ready to go for, let's say, you know, if you're doing a lot of, I don't know, blind hems, or if you're like, okay, I'll have the walking foot on this one, and then I'll have, you know, whatever, a stretch needle on this one. You can just kind of have different machines for different purposes. And all my Singers, they're all low shank machines, so the attachments, the feet, everything like that are all interchangeable, but the Ricard has a different setup. So I'm kind of like, well, it kind of makes sense to bring him to Florida because blah, blah, blah. Anyway, we'll see. And it might just be a pipe dream. I go down and visit, like, if I'm lucky, once a year. And I mean, really, what is a few days out of a year without a sewing machine? Is it manageable, or is it like, oh my God, I need to sew, or I'm gonna lose my mind? Maybe a little bit of both. All right, this needle is giving me, did I get through there? Yes, oh my gosh, and I almost pulled it out and I didn't. Yay, we're threaded. All right, so machine, quit giving me trouble, will ya? Let's make it easy peasy for me to get this sleeve cuffed. All right, I'm gonna start ahead of the bump. These freaking speed bumps are like my nemesis. Some people put a little, like a button underneath their foot when they're going up or down a bunch of seams like that, and I haven't really implemented that technique. Maybe it would be good for me to start. All right, and I am not lined up right. I want to line up here, right? Does it really? 3/4 inch is all the way over here at this line that says 6. I have not been doing that. maybe what it wants you to do is it actually wants one needle to go on one side of the folded under fabric and one needle to go on the other side, and then kind of lock it in. But that just seems a little risky to me. I'm gonna go at, I mean, what did I do on the other side? I should just keep it the same. I think I did 4, ½ an inch. Can I find the sleeve? Here, this is what I did for the other side. Looks like that. That looks fine. All right, we're just keeping it the same. Symmetry, there's nothing like it. Okay, let's sew. Pin cushions back over here. I wonder where my seam gauge went. Back stitch, and let's go. Tempted to sew over my pins, but I'm not going to. Or am I? Oh, we'll see. How much of a daredevil are you when you sew? I tend to be a little bit conservative. So I'm doing basically, it's more like a 5/8 inch seam allowance than 3/4 inch. And I think that is going to be fine. It's actually, I think I did ½ an inch on the other side. Oops. All right. Coming around the bend. Oops. Get that out of there. And what do we have? We got one needle here on the seam, and that's it. Okay. Pretty close, so let me take this out. And here's where the problem is going to be. I can almost guarantee. Get that folded under. Here's where we started. That actually went pretty well. I didn't hear any weird clicking. Okay, up. So every time, maybe it's because I'm going through more layers of fabric. This is what happened. We just got pulled. Wonder if I should lower the tension for that? Like, what is happening and why is that such a pain in my neck? All right, so let's get this out of here. It hasn't torn yet. Hang on. We're like almost there. All right. So we were going fine, 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 and then right about here we lost it. Whoops, right about there. I'm not zigzagging anymore. I'm wondering just overall if my tension could go a little bit lower for this project. This was what I was using when I did the first one that I'm actually wearing now. I'll show it to you all at the end if we don't finish this one. But we might. How much? I'm going for 48 minutes. All right, let's do this. I'm gonna cut this here. And I'm going to take these threads over to the other side of the fabric. I can just do that in one shot. Here. So you're actually seeing me do something instead of doing it off camera. Okay, got those threads through. So I'm just taking these guys through to the other side and then tying a knot with the bobbin thread. And because this is like the top stitching is visible, that's the reason that I did the 2 threads to the bobbin side instead of previously I'd done the bobbin side to the 2 threads. It's all about the little bitty details, isn't it? It doesn't have to be, but I am kind of a little bit of a detail-oriented person. Just a little bit. Okay, let's cut this so that way we're not going to be getting stuck on any threads. And now, how are we going to remedy this? So this is what's left that has to get hemmed. And we're going to start about here. I'm going to do this. Just flip this guy over to the other side. Ouch, I just almost cut my own skin. When I get tired, things can go downhill. And I'm often finding that I get real tired. I actually already took 2 naps today. They were both glorious. The first one, maybe I wouldn't call it a nap. So I woke up at like 5 a.m., which is kind of normal for me a lot of days. And then I'm just in bed looking at my iPad, blah, 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 not doing much. And I fell back asleep for like, I don't know, maybe an additional hour or so. And a friend had told me that the morning sleep is the best. And I was like, yes. Sleeping from like 8 a.m. until 9 a.m. and getting up at 9 when the sun's already up, like that was just really glorious. So I did that. Then around 12 o'clock, I was trying to go to a meeting that I enjoy going to, but I realized at about 5 of when my alarm went off, I was like, I'm not up for this today. So I took a nap instead, and that's a nice thing to be able to do once in a while. Self-care. Self-care Tuesday while we are sewing so much in March. Gotta get the naps in so we don't run out of steam. Okay, let me just get this guy rethreaded. I feel like if I sew this top again, which I probably will, I'm going to use one of my fancy pants machines and use a stretch stitch instead of a twin needle on this old girl. And we'll see how that goes. It'd be nice to have like a comparison. Although I have to tell you, like, besides the tunneling that I'm getting, I'm really enjoying sewing with the twin needle. I was terrified of it. I picked up my twin needle, like, I can't even tell you how many months ago, probably over a year ago, with the intention of sewing a knit project. And I finally got the courage to use it this week. So, go me. All right, here's where we are. We need to sew. Oh, we need to sew this part, and it's so hard, but we can do it. Okay, we're going to start all the way back here. Hang on one moment, please. Hang on. I feel like my threads are just not quite where I want them. There we go. Okay. Let's finish this up. No broken threads. No broken threads. No whammies. Backstitch. All right, here we go, friends. This is the moment of truth. We got to get over this doggone speed bump, and let's go really slow. Okay, I think we're good. And gotta get that going again. I do think we succeeded. I'm gonna go a little bit further and then backstitch. And I feel like that was just a skip stitch. Come on. Why is that? So we fell out of the keeper, I guess. It feels like they're twisting up here, and maybe that's causing the problem. Whatever. We're pretty much done. Let's see how this turned out. It sounded good. See if it looks good. Oh my gosh, we're gonna have the cutest little spring t-shirt. All right, I will take it. It's not perfect, but yeah, it's good enough. Good enough. Oh my gosh, something weird was happening. But like I said, good enough. All right, should we do a little try on? Why not? I don't have a side seam on one side, but no, I do. We are so ready for a try on. The only thing we don't have right now is a bottom hem. So let's see how it looks. And let me show you. This is the first one I sewed right here. I'm going to be honest with you all. Don't repeat this. I've been wearing this shirt now for about 4 days straight. And when I originally washed it and then started wearing it, I was like, this $4 2 yards of mystery fabric that I got from Walmart is really impressing me in its quality, like really impressing me. And here's what's like kind of baffling. It's not getting stinky. Usually polyesters and all that, like I wear it for an hour and it can be like a stink fest. But with whatever this mystery fabric is, it's really been awesome. All right, what do we think? I think this looks great. We're getting a little bit of double neckline action going, but that's just because I'm wearing 2 shirts. Oh my gosh, the Tonic tee. The Tonic Petite t-shirt from SBCC Patterns. I don't know what that stands for, but I love it. I love this top so much. I really recommend picking up this pattern. It's a free printable if you sign up for their newsletters, and I put the link in the description for this video. Spring shirt, spring t-shirt. Oh my gosh, love it, love it, love it. Thank you for watching. Happy sewing, happy creating, and I'll see you again soon. Bye-bye.